Good morning, Year 10. Okay, so today we're going to go into word problems using simultaneous equations. All right, so this will really test you out. The first example, at a school concert there were 640 guests. The second thing they say, there were 70 more women than men. So they'll normally give you two different things that they're telling you. Those two things will give you your two equations that you're solving simultaneously. Generally, they'll be in two sentences, but sometimes they'll vary it a little bit. So the first one, at a school there were 640 guests. That's your first equation. Second sentence, there were 70 more women than men. That's your second equation. So then they're asking how many of the audience were men. They haven't asked you for how many men there were and how many women. Normally, on everything we've done so far, they've asked for both. And often in these they will ask for both as well, but just be aware that if they're only asking for one thing, you don't need to do all the working. And if you're smart about it, you'll get this out before you find the second thing. Okay, so how many of the audience were men? So we're going to let M equal the number of men. And then of course the other thing will be the women, so let W equal the number of women. Alright, so looking at what they told us first up, at a school concert, there were 640 guests. The only people that are there are men and women. So men, the number of men plus the number of women is the 640 guests. That's your first sentence, first equation. Second sentence said there were 70 more women than men. So the women equals the men plus 70. There were 70 more women than men. Okay, so once you've got your two equations, it's up to you what you think you're going to do, whether it's going to be substitution or elimination. You decide what's easier. Okay, so already they've got W isolated in number 2. W is already the subject there, so we'd probably be silly not to use that. So in number 2, we've already got W to be the subject, so W equals M plus 70. That would be the asterisk equation. We're going to sub that W equals M plus 70 straight back in the other equation we haven't used in number 1. So copy down number 1. Then where the W is, you're going to write M plus 70. There are more than one term there, and you could put it in a bracket, but I know that all we're doing is adding it on here. But if you're not sure, put it in brackets and then get rid of them if you don't need them. Okay, so we're going to just collect our like terms. We've got 2M plus 70 equals 640. Continue through and you'll get M equals 285 men. That's the answer to the question. That's what they wanted to know. How many of the audience were men? So we're not going to go and get that and sub back in and find out what W is, because they didn't ask for it. Okay, in the second example, Tracy bought a total of 17 DVDs and CDs. One sentence, one equation. Each DVD cost her $25 and each CD cost $18. Altogether, Tracy spent $390. All of that information is going to be in equation 2. We are finding how many DVDs she bought, just the number of DVDs. They're only asking you for one thing. So we're going to start with that. Let D equal the number of DVDs. Then, of course, we would have let C equal the number of CDs. So back up to the first sentence, she bought a total of 17 DVDs and CDs. So we've got D plus C equals 17. The number of DVDs plus the number of CDs equals 17. The second and the third sentence together are going to form this one. So each DVD cost her $25. So $25 times the number of DVDs, that's how much she would spend on DVDs. $18 for each CD, so 18 times the number of CDs is how much money she would spend on CDs. Add those together and that's how much she spent, equals 390. So now we're going to get these two equations and solve them simultaneously to get the answer to just the number of DVDs, which is D on ours. So I've written over here, if I want to find D only, I'm going to make the other letter the subject when I'm going to do substitution. So up here, I can see that I can pretty easily do a substitution method here. So I could choose either to make D the subject or C. If I want this out quickly, I'm going to choose the other letter to what I want to find. So I want to find D, I'm going to put C on its own. So I'm going to write this as C equals, move this over, 17 minus D. That's the asterisk equation. Then we're going to sub C equals 17 minus D in the other equation that we haven't used, which is number 2. Copy down number 2. And where you see the C, you're going to write 17 minus D. Now in this case, with the two terms, you must put the bracket in, because we are multiplying all of that by the 18, and we will have to expand the brackets here. So that must go in brackets. So then when we get to the expanding the brackets, we're going to get 25D plus, this gives you 306, and 18 times minus D is minus 18D. Collect your like terms, and we have 7D plus 306 equals 390. And if you go through and solve it right to the end, you end up with 12 DVDs. So we haven't had to go back in and find the C that they didn't want anyway, and that will work if you do what I said here. All right, the next question. The sum of the ages of Mrs. Buey and her daughter Hayley is 70. The difference between their ages is 38 years. So the sum of their ages is 70. The difference of their ages is 38. They want to know just how old Hayley is, not both their ages, just how old she is. So we're going to let H equal Hayley's age. Make sure you don't just write that H equal Hayley. We have to have a number word. And we're going to let M equal her mum's age. So these two added together, H plus M equals 70, and their difference is 38. Now make sure when you do the difference here, mum is older than Hayley. So we're going to do mum minus Hayley, mum's age minus Hayley's age equals 38. Don't do it the other way around. Mum's going to be older, so she's got to go first with the difference. Okay, now you'll notice that I haven't got my letters lined up here. That's going to create a lot of problems if we're not careful. So I'm changing H plus M to be M plus H, just so that I have the M's lined up and the H's lined up. So I'm going to leave this one for you to solve. I'm going to come back and do it in a minute, but you can choose whatever you like here. This can be done a number of ways, but just keep an eye on, we're only looking for Hayley's age. Okay, so let's see how you go, and I'll come back with it in a minute on the next video.